The president makes one final attempt to keep us out of the war in a message to Congress, which has come to be known as the Peace Without Victory speech. It must be, he says, a peace without victory. It is not pleasant to say this, and it was not pleasant in the ears of most people who heard it, even though he's motivated here. He wants to bring it, he wants to see an end to conflict that doesn't involve punishing or forcing the victor's way on the loser. He just wants, kind of unrealistically perhaps, he just wants it all to simmer down and go away. He wants a just peace. Maybe I shouldn't say that that's unrealistic. Woodrow Wilson, he's not perfect by any means. But he is a man of ideals, and he wants to see a better, more safer, more secure, less violent society, and the Peace Without Victory speech is really his first time outlining what that looks like. And in the next video, we'll take a closer look at the Peace Without Victory speech. When you move on to section 23.2 of the OpenStax textbook, and you'll see what the United States does to prepare ourselves and to ensure that we can be as successful as possible in the war. Passed the Selective Service Act in 1917. This is the Selective Service Act is the draft. So everybody, originally 21 through 35, and eventually expanded to every man 18 through 45 have to register for the draft. And so if we're in need of soldiers, a drawing is made, and if your registration number, if your draft number comes up, you're going to war. We no longer have a draft in the United States today, by the way, but you still got to register for it, just in case they decide to bring it back. 22 million men registered for the draft, and 5 million were actually drafted. Another 1.5 million volunteered for the Army, and another 500,000 volunteered for the Navy or Marines. You had 350,000 who were eligible for the draft who refused to register, and 65,000 of these called themselves conscientious objectors, which often on religious grounds, maybe they're from a pacifist religious tradition. And though most were never prosecuted, it is a dangerous game to play. It is a dangerous gamble. For those who were tried for dodging the draft, 20 or more years in prison, and 17 people admit that I was not aware of this until preparing for this lesson, that 17 people in the United States of America in the 20th century, this is not the Roman Empire crucifying people. This is 17 people in the century in which I was born were put to death for refusing to go to war. You can read in section 23.2 also of the other steps, economic steps taken here on the home front to ensure that we're able to produce the weaponry that we need, that we're able to finance the war, that we're able to feed the troops. It involves food rationing. Be patriotic. Sign your country's pledge to save the food. You read all about that in section 23.2. Now that we're in war, question comes: what do we do with the people who are not happy about the war? What do we do? Because we're had very divided opinions. Now we've made a decision. We've entered the war. What do we do with all the people who are still complaining about it. What do we do since we have so many people of different ethnic backgrounds who may have family fighting on the other side, friends fighting on the other side, whose loyalties we suspect may lie on the other side? How do we keep the dissent down so that our war effort is not sabotaged from within? Part of this is accomplished through a propaganda campaign, which sought to push an attitude of America first. Maybe you're a Russian American, maybe you're an Italian American, but the American part is the part that matters, is what we emphasize. For one group in particular, though, that was tougher than it sounds for German Americans, because Germany is the prime enemy in this combat. So what do we do with all of the German Americans who we're now given the side eye, looking at with great suspicion? And there will be, the second video to follow will be a case study. This is an issue all over the nation, but this video would look at the German community of Evansville, Indiana, and the troubles and persecution that they endured as the other Americans around them suspected them of being disloyal. After that, we'll hear about George Creel, who is the mastermind of United States propaganda in World War I. Check this out. Destroy this mad brute. What's going on here? So the King Kong, the gorilla represents the Germans. So what do we do here? In creating things like this, we are dehumanizing the enemy. Because look, it is difficult to look another human being in the eye and then shoot him or stick a bayonet blade through his heart, because unless we're psychopaths, we have empathy. And whatever our disagreements are, when we see the face of another person, we see that inside this person is an interior, emotional, intellectual life just like ours. We feel for the other person, and that makes killing very difficult. And when you're in a war, that's exactly what you need your soldiers to do. You need your soldiers to flip the off switch on their empathy. So, with George Creel's propaganda campaign, we begin to portray the enemy as something other than human, whittling away, chipping away at the spirit of empathy, to enable the soldiers to effectively become part of this killing machine. So much for Woodrow Wilson's more moral approach to foreign policy. I guess that's all on pause. For the duration of the war. After we meet George Creel, we'll hear about the Espionage and Sedition Acts. This is a big deal on the home front. Now, espionage is spying. Okay, so it's never legal to spy for the enemy. But what happens is many immigrants or descendants of immigrants from the other side are wrongly accused of espionage, or the more dangerous term here is sedition, where despite the Constitution guaranteeing freedom of speech, we tighten restrictions on the ability to speak out against the war. In the video that follows that, we'll meet the Women's Land Army of America. We'll see how women stepped up in the labor force and in agriculture in the absence of all the men going off to war. So please watch the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos that follow in the playlist.